Hey everybody, it's James Clary, the Restaurant Guru. Today's podcast is for those of you that want to open a restaurant. Here we go. Hey everybody, it's James Clary, the Restaurant Guru, coming at you from the Queen City of the Ozarks. Hey, I did a YouTube search. I was looking for videos on how to open a restaurant. I get this question all the time. Hey, I want to open a restaurant. How do I do it? Everyone has this dream, not everyone, but many people have the dream of opening a restaurant. And while I support that dream and I'm a huge proponent of entrepreneurship, owning a restaurant is a different animal altogether. And as I did this YouTube search, I came across a couple videos, but they really didn't give much information. So I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you what I think the steps are in opening a restaurant. And these are the steps that I've took to open my first restaurant in 1989, and I've used the same process in opening 3 more restaurants for myself and opening several dozen other restaurants for other people. As a consultant, you have to do your due diligence. So let's get right into it. The first thing you need to open a restaurant is what's called a pro forma or a business plan. And there is some information on the internet about how to write a business plan, but basically, let me break it down for you. The first part of a business plan must contain what's called your mission statement. And this really shouldn't be a long, drawn-out thesis. It's usually a couple paragraphs, maybe 1 page, that basically the mission statement describes what type of restaurant you want to open, your desired location, and an overview of the income in the area that you intend to open it. And you might ask, well, why is that important? Of course, it's incredibly important. If you want to open a fast food restaurant, let's say, that caters to people of a lower income, well, you certainly don't want to open it in the wealthiest part of town. A lot of that's because of the population density. The population density means how many people are living, let's say, per square mile. If you're going to open fast food or, say, an ice cream shop, you want high population density. You want a lot of people concentrated living in that area. On the flip side, if you're opening, say, a fine dining restaurant, you want to be nearer to more affluent areas, because people that are more affluent, that have more money, they tend to eat out at fine dining restaurants with more frequency than people of less means, if you will, of a lower income. So you can get those studies from your local chamber of commerce. You know, the chamber, there's usually, if you have a university in your town, they have a business extension. Either the university or the chamber of commerce are usually more than happy to help any aspiring entrepreneur get their business going. So if you ask them, say, hey, a certain zip code, let's say 75804, I don't even know where that is. But if you're in that zip code, you go to the local chamber of commerce and say, look, I need an income analysis of the people living in this zip code. They can usually provide that for you. There's all kinds of different methods and resources that you can use to get this information. So your mission statement, again, it also should have particular motif, what your basic price point is going to be, and I would also include what separates your projected restaurant from other restaurants in the area. And the most salient advice I think I've given to new clients who want to open a restaurant, I usually tell them, look, okay, so you have your general area that you want to be in. Why is your restaurant going to be better than anyone else in that area? And if you can't answer that question, then you need to go back to the drawing board, because there's really no point opening another restaurant that doesn't really even compete with the ones that are already existing there. You're not going to get new customers. Why wouldn't they just go to the other place if you don't do it any better than them? So you really have to set yourself up for success. You've got to eat at, and you've got to try the competition in the area, and you've got to make sure that the restaurant you have in mind is going to be better than. And it really should be leaps and bounds better than the competition. If you can do that, you have a chance for success. The second part of your business plan has to do with the numbers aspect of it. And the first thing you need to do is what's called an income analysis. So basically, you're going to project the amount of income that you believe you can bring in on this restaurant. And so how do you do this? You might ask. Well, it's fairly simple. Let's go back to the ice cream shop. Let's say you want to do a small frozen custard store, for instance. You should have a general idea of what your menu is and what the pricing is going to be. So from that, you ascertain what your ticket average is. That means, on average, what does an average typical customer at your ice cream store spend? Well, let's say your menu ranges from $8 to $5. Somewhere and that average is going to be about $6.75, something like that. And if you could add a drink, so you might say my ticket average I think is going to be about $7.50. All right. Well, then you have to estimate the number of people that you think will come to your store on a given day. Let's say Monday's usually slower, weekends are usually busier. So you know, if you know the days you're going to be open, let's say you're open 7 days a week, you literally create a spreadsheet Monday through Sunday, and you estimate, I'm going to do this many people on Monday, I'm going to do this many on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You put down what you project your average sale is going to be, your average ticket, which we said was $7.50, and you multiply those. It's pretty simple. That will give you your weekly projected income. Now, from there, you need to determine monthly and you need to determine annual. Well, to determine monthly, you multiply your weekly times 4.3. Why 4.3? Well, because there's more than 4 weeks in a month. On average, it works out to 4.3. That's the multiplier you use. 4.3 times your weekly income will give you your monthly. Obviously, to get your annual, you take your monthly times how many months in a year, kids? 12. That's right. So now you've got your monthly, your weekly, your monthly, and your annual income projections. So you've got a good start. You got your mission statement, you got your income projections. The next thing we need to do is what's called a profit analysis. And it's basically like a profit and loss statement, but since you haven't opened the store yet, it's going to be what you project, what you feel based on your research that we've discussed already, what you feel that your profit and expenses are going to look like. And at the top of any profit and loss statement, you're going to show your income. Okay, well, that comes off your income analysis. The rest of it is going to be your expenses. Now, these are your projected expenses. For instance, one expense every restaurant has is trash service. But how do you know? Well, pick up the phone, go on the internet, call 2 to 3 trash services and find out for an average restaurant in your area, tell them what kind of business you plan on opening. What do you think the service will be? So now you've got a number that you can plug into this projected profit and loss statement. Short for that is P&L, or your profit analysis. So telephone service is another one. You've obviously rent, and you can determine that by talking to different landlords in the area. You've got to know the square footage that you want for your restaurant, and you can find out an average per square foot what rent generally is. The two biggest costs are, first, your COGs, COGS. That stands for cost of goods, and your labor. Well, let's take both of those. First of all, cost of goods. That's the money that you're going to spend to produce the product that you sell. It's the cost of the goods, food that you purchase to create a dish that you eventually sell. That's what cost of goods stand for. So in the ice cream shop, you're going to have your ice cream mix if you have a machine that makes it there, or you may just buy the ice cream in big tubs. Well, that's ice cream is part of it. But in that scenario, you would probably also include your paper goods, which would include your cups, your spoons, your straws, all those kind of things. You got to include the cost of, let's say you're going to do Coca-Cola. Well, you call your local Coke rep and say, I want to do a fountain service. Coca-Cola will bring this into your business free of charge. They'll give you the equipment, usually free of charge, and then you pay for the actual soda. And you can ask them, well, how much does it cost for a bag of Coke? So that's the cost of goods aspect. You have to estimate that. And it's usually as a percentage of sales. So if you estimate you're going to do, let's say, round number, $50,000 a month, a good cost of goods might be 28%. So you multiply 50,000 times 28%, and there you've got your cost of goods. But you also need to do your research and like I said, call Coca-Cola, call the ice cream manufacturer, find out how much that stuff costs. you really can't determine your menu prices until you know what your cost of goods are. As far as labor, you literally have to write out a schedule, and I use Excel for most of these things and just do it on a spreadsheet, and you're going to estimate, okay, on a Monday to man my ice cream shop, I'm going to need a manager and 3 workers, and that's all going to be based on the volume of your business. And you put those in, you think I'm going to need to pay these people this much, and you multiply it across. And eventually, by doing that on a daily basis, just like we did with the income analysis, you're going to get a weekly labor cost, and then you're going to get a monthly times 4.3, and then you'll get an annual. Okay, so you've got now all of your expenses listed, including your cost of goods and your labor and trash, and rent, and telephone, and internet service. You've got all that stuff listed on your spreadsheet. You've got your income at the top. Now, the next thing you need to do is what's called a break-even analysis. Now, I'm not going to go into detail. The formula for figuring a break-even analysis involves using 2 different types of expenses, which are called variable and fixed expenses. But the formula allows you to know how much money do I need to do on a given day to break even. Break-even analysis is a very useful tool in determining if your business is going to be viable. After the break-even analysis, you want to do a cash flow statement. And this really just shows you how much cash you're going to have available. So that's basically your business plan, but there's several other things you need to do before you even consider opening a restaurant. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, how am I going to finance this restaurant? Let's say Uncle Harry gave you an inheritance and you've got $100,000. Well, is that enough to open your ice cream store? I would say at the top of my head, heck no. You can generally, I did see one good YouTube video by a chef out there who was saying, I think he had a very good point. He said, take whatever number you think you can open this restaurant and multiply it by 5. And he's really about right. I was very fortunate in the first restaurant I opened. I found a place that had closed, and I was able to purchase everything that was inside the building for a song and a dance. And I would highly recommend that. Rather than starting from new, if you can find an existing business that was a restaurant, go into that business. There's a number of reasons for this. The first is that most people don't realize it's about 4 times as expensive to build out a restaurant than, let's say, a clothing store, because a restaurant includes massive amount of electricity, of water, and of ventilation, which is HVAC, heating and air. You've got hot surfaces that you're cooking on. You need ventilation to draw that hot air out. You have to have what's called an ANSEL or fire protection system. So, I mean, the plumbing in a restaurant is at least 3 times as involved as doing a regular retail store. Same thing with electrical. And believe me, it costs a fortune just for electrical service. So when if you get to the point where you're going to build a new restaurant, I'm telling you, it will cost you several $100,000 even for a small restaurant just to build it out, because primarily, like I said, the HVAC, the plumbing, and the electrical. So you need to figure out where your financing is coming from. The next thing you need to do, if you've got your financing, you've done your mission statement, and you feel like this is a good plan, you need to start looking for locations, and you need to make sure that you can afford that location. And once again, my advice to anyone is to find a restaurant that's gone out of business and secure that location, because it's going to be a heck of a lot cheaper than building from the ground up. Those are my tips for opening a restaurant. Sounds like a lot of work. Well, guess what, kids? The restaurant business is a lot of work. So if you're not prepared to work really hard, don't even think about it. If you really want help, I would suggest you get professional help. No, not a psychiatrist, but call somebody like me, the restaurant guru, James Clary. This is what I do for a living. I help people realize their dream of opening a restaurant. But I'm also the guy who will tell you, don't do this. And I've said that to many clients. I said, you're not in a position to do this. If you do want help opening your restaurant, feel free to give me a shout out, send me an email, james@therestaurantguru.net, and my contact information will be at the bottom of this podcast. But I am glad to talk to anyone. I offer a free 30-minute consult to anybody that's considering opening a restaurant. I'll be glad to talk to you. So give me a buzz, and I'll give you my initial gut reaction, whether it's a good business plan or not. That's it for today. I'm James Clary, the Restaurant Guru. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Visit me at therestaurantguru.net for more information on how you can become successful in the most difficult business in the world, the restaurant business.